I might not have become a Muslim. He could have been a Hindu, worshipping 14,321 gods and goddesses, like a goddess to my neighbor's dog, another to the moon, and yet another to the moon. Evander Holyfield's missing ear. I would be worshipping all these gods, faked, and would be sick. Sick at heart and blind to logic by behind obeying a pink elephant with 6 arms, which can be found on the walls of some Indian restaurants influenced by the Hinduism. Yes, they love elephants, which are usually afraid of rats. Or maybe it could be a Christian, worshipping Jesus Christ. But why should I love a prophet who, in fact, never called himself divine? Didn't he know? You know, and so do I. Jesus is not God and God is not Jesus. Could have gone to Buddhism, but which sect is correct? Maybe? And I would have wanted to listen to the Dalai Lama tell me how to enjoy life in his words. Picking up 3 prostitutes and traveling to Las Vegas. I became nothing of this. I will not become. I turned in the direction of Islam when I didn't know almost nothing about him. A year later, I took the Shahada. I just wish I had done it so much before. This is my story about how I became a Muslim. It started when I was 10 years old. One God. When I was 10 years old, my parents told me enrolled in the local conversing synagogue in the densely Jewish town of Brookline, Massachusetts. I was sent there supposedly to learn Hebrew and learn Judaism. They didn't teach me properly neither. The teachers were mostly Israeli. It's hard for me to remember now, but in fact they taught the Reformed Judaism very well. At 10 I sincerely believed in God. I read the stories of the Torah and Old Testament and was more pious than my parents as well older. I tried to pray and be persevering, even though my family and friends, as I recall, they didn't think of it as minimally important. Why not did they care? Despite this, I continued with my inner Jew. During this, when I was a Jew, I took a look at Christianity, wondering why so many people followed this great man, whose name so many people used in vain when they dropped their papers or tripped. They shouldn't show more respect for Jesus Christ? I thought. Besides, he could be the Son of God? Then one day, still 10 years old, going over my readings on the Jews and Israel, I found a new religion. First, I saw a crescent moon and a star. I read a little more. I was deeply touched when I discovered that another the billion people in the world worship the same God as I did. When I think about that now, was truly remarkable. These followers of Islam, of Allah Almighty, read the Quran as it is pronounced and make pilgrimages. Interesting. Unfortunately, a more in-depth at that time was hampered because of the affinity with Israel. I was brainwashed about Muslims terrorists who blew up Jews like dynamite. The Jews were good and the Jews Arabs were bad. That's what my friends told me and what my friends told me. Teachers seemed to hint at it, and I heard little of Islam again until 1999. Meanwhile, 1994 it became 1995. My family has changed synagogues and sects. From conservatives, now we called ourselves Reform Jews. We became very liberal. Our rabbi, it was not kosher. He was hardly what I consider a spiritual leader, a man who leads Jews as followers of God. One night when we were sitting in the congregation, our rabbi tried to keep us awake. He referred to his pleasure in looking lustfully at the schoolgirls of Boston College from his home, which was nearby. He incited only a handful of laughs. Today, when I look back, I remember how I spoke of the haram in front of his wife, before the Torah and in the presence of God. My discontent with Judaism grew and knew that a religious movement for the right was inevitable. It just wouldn't be Orthodox Judaism. The other people of the book. I was impressed at the time with the spirituality of Christmas because it seemed powerful. Knew that Judaism was a corrupted religion, but still believed in God. The Christians believe in God, don't they? I went to Mass, I spoke with the priests, but I had the greatest difficulty in believing that Jesus could divine being. So I forced myself to do it. He prayed to his Son, and what a mess. I tried very hard, but I knew there was no answer. I didn't understand, but I continued to study the Catechism and to say the Our Father. He was not baptized and therefore not baptized. He was a Catholic. In fact, to become a Catholic, you need to study for 9 months. What if I died before I became a Catholic because the priests wouldn't let me that I would become a Christian? So what would happen? I continued to notice the failures in Christian doctrine. The priests seemed to notice them, but still continued to preach. Around January 26, 1999, I dropped out of the confirmation class. I abandoned the Christianity, although it was not even Christian. I wasn't saved, but I wasn't imported. I pleased my parents immensely when I left the Catholic Church. But he still knew that there was only one God. To this day I'm surprised how it all happened instantaneously. Not even a week after leaving the church for good, I was ready to learn about God's ultimate religion. The horrendous procrastination. My father was very happy to know that my interest in Catholicism had faded and he welcomed me in arms open. Unfortunately, it took me to the library. There I was presented with the Encyclopedia Britannica. I read about Muhammad, who mercy and blessings of God be upon him. The article claimed that he slaughtered all the Jewish men of his tribe. Reading this I was deeply saddened and, at the same time, angry and confused. I was outraged to know that this prophet of Islam had slaughtered Jews and was confused about what to do now. I thought I had discarded Islam, but I still believed in Islam. God. So what would happen? In fact, no more than 2 years have passed weeks before returning. He knew that Judaism was corrupt. He knew that Judaism was corrupt. Christianity was corrupted. Now I get it. The Encyclopedia Britannica too is corrupted. So I began my search for a local mosque. In fact, I found a mosque next by accident. I searched the internet incessantly. As soon as I saw the word Boston, I clicked the mouse, waiting for the information that would lead me to love it God in the right way. I waited, patient with a slow and indifferent modem, and, finally, the site loaded. At the push of the button from the mouse I was greeted with Assalamu alaikum. I wrote down the address and planned the travel. It was so special to find a mosque in Boston. I was excited to not having to travel to Egypt, Jordan or Yemen. It was around February 28, 1999. I walked down Prospect Street and saw the mosque. I walked to the front, reached the open door, and noticed a notice, entry of women. Women's entrance. I didn't know what it meant and so I walked around the mosque, hoping they would let the men in somewhere. Suddenly I felt nervous, because I found the entrance of the men. I had never met a religious Muslim and had no idea what would be the reaction of a Muslim when he met me. I was in doubt if I was supposed to hide my Jewish identity. I took a deep breath and walked through the door. "Excuse me," he said to the first, "I'm here to learn about Islam." I waited for his reaction. He hoped for an instruction or to be sent away. Would they really send me away? I had hung up my shoes. The man opened the "Sorry, I don't speak English," and entered the main hall. I followed him. I wasn't sure if he had left me wandering. I looked around, for the believers prostrating themselves in submission to Allah, SWT. It was touched, but he wasn't sure what to do next. Then I noticed that the man came back with the which seemed to be a horde of other believers. There was one of me and what it looked like 50 of them. Everyone spoke to me at the same time. It was overwhelming, but very good. It showed how important Islam was to Muslims in the past and now. I received a short illustrated guide to Islam, and within minutes I had the Shahada before my eyes. There it was. La ilaha illa Allah, Muhammad Rasulullah. He was ready to say it. Here and now, 9 months for me become a Catholic, probably more to be a Jew. In a matter of moments, I was able to embrace Islam. Are you sure? You don't have to do that, came the advice of a friendly but cautious brother. He was surprised. Was it something so important that he would have to think about it? No, should I become a Muslim now? That day, I became a Muslim. But it was a wonderful Saturday. I met brothers from all over the world. And yet, as diverse as people seemed, they all shared a common goal, which was clear. Maximum submission to Allah, SWT. It would take more than 1 year until I became a Muslim. During that year, he had been at the site of an alleged shooting in the Bronx, passing by with my family's car. In truth, the bullet shattered the back window, a few inches from my head. I survived with a scratch and soon forgot the whole incident. On May 6, 200, I took the same train that I always took to the mosque in Cambridge. This time I took a book with me in Arabic, because I thought it would be appropriate for learn the language. That was my philosophy at the time. Study Islam in a way all-encompassing. When you do the Shahada, you will be a genius. I ran to a Muslim which I hadn't seen in months. He asked me if I hadn't become one yet Muslim. So, we talked quickly. He said if I went out and suffered in a car accident, he would die as a non-Muslim. This could mean the hell. He told me the same story in December 1999, but I told him the same story had ignored it, even with the Bronx shooting. This time, I wasn't going to postpone Islam. In the mosque that same afternoon I sat and watched as the Muslims aligned themselves for Zuhr, the second prayer of the day. I watched as they prostrated themselves, an act that Satan had done refused. And I couldn't wait any longer. I thought about what it would be like to become a Muslim now, but my thoughts were all in the same direction. Said to his brother right after the prayer I wanted to become a Muslim that day. While I write this, 3 months later, I know that doing the Shahada was the best thing I ever had. I could never have done it. I just wish I had done it earlier.